All right.
All right, we are live. Welcome,
Woo!
listeners, to the MetaWork Labs podcast, where we discuss all things related to remote work, digital collaboration, human centered technology, and the future of how we work. I'm your host, Christo Lute, and this is my colleague.
Gray Alexander.
It's been a while since we podcasted. I've got some new life news, and it is very appropriate for the topic today. Which is the tech bubble and Elon. So my news is I was laid off 2 weeks ago, which is looking like it's not going to be a unique experience for many, many people working in tech.
It's not. It's already not. So here we are.
Here we are. And we were talking just before the show, and great, you asked this great question, which was how do you feel?
How do you feel about being laid off? How do you feel about being self-employed now? If you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So I feel weird is like the real fundamental answer is like, but my initial gut reaction was like, I should have done this sooner, is how I feel.
Mm,
I should have started working on side projects and making them possible incomes sooner. I think that I was reluctant because I didn't know how. And that is fine because there's so much in my life that I don't know how to do. And it turns out other people actually make money on the side and they make money on the internet, and I can do it too. So I feel good about it. I am lucky that I have a few really good clients for executive coaching, and then have a little bit of sales and marketing work that is also paying the bills. But I am feeling good about it. I said earlier, ask me in March, because that's when the runway kind of runs out. I have to have more clients than I currently do by then, but I am feeling really good about it. And it was a little bit of a shock. Losing your job is most of the time a shock for people, and it was for me. I've been working really, really hard for this company, and they cut, I think, close to half their employees, which they're just stripping it down to bare bone. I was working in private equity, and so I think they're probably trying to line it up to make a sale or take them off the books, and even counting their losses as part of their kind of tax strategy might be another move here.
mm.
But other folks are dropping like flies in the tech industry. I think I read somewhere that like half the Twitter employees got laid off, and then there was a big Meta cut, and
Yeah.
Microsoft is laying folks off.
Yep. Twitter, Lyft. I think Salesforce also had some. It's all over.
Yeah,
Thousands of employees every whack. And it's just everyone's quoting this notion that there's a recession coming, and there's part of me that has to wonder, like, do they know something we don't? There's a other side part of me that wonders if this is all self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Because
hmm
if you continue to lay off 5,000 500,000 people or whatever in a month, that will have an impact. And these are not low salaried employees generally.
right. Have a lot of excess capital. Um, any worries on your end?
I think I am pretty secure. I have no reason to believe otherwise. Um, Not being, while I am a tech worker, I'm not in the tech industry, and
hmm
I think that does insulate me a lot from these problems.
Yeah.
Um, However, it where it does impact me is that I am actively looking for additional roles or other roles, however you want to look at that. And I it's hard to find. I remember, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was looking at jobs, and it was not as difficult to find roles as it is now as a tech worker.
Yeah.
I think everyone's just, their books are tight right now, and they aren't interested in hiring, and especially in my space, which is cloud. Um, Everyone's talking about how cloud's not performing well as an industry.
Interesting.
We've
Interesting.
kind of hit that cap.
Mm.
Something that gets talked about a lot at Google is and Meta is just that they've hit this cap, and um, getting new users is very difficult, and that's transitioning to cloud too, where you can only have so many customers. you can't own the world, and even if you do own the world, you can't own more than the world.
Right.
So what do you do? And
There are
that's kind
7
of where we're
billion
at now,
potential customers. If we're at 7 billion, we're done.
right?
Yeah.
Or if a million plus people die in a pandemic, like there's some of your customer base too. So like you can't expect exponential growth forever. And I
Right.
think a lot of these companies are seeing it, and I think that trickles down in a variety of ways.
Yeah, it makes me think maybe that feeling of exponential growth or that expectation of growth was built into the stock prices.
Yep,
And that would, I mean, there should be a contraction if we're not seeing the growth in the same way that the value of the stock is less. That makes sense. I'm a little skeptical too, Gray. I think that most companies find excuses to do layoffs when they have
yeah,
grown too big. And we've seen this bubble before. I obviously it was really severe in 2001, but we saw it also in the 90s and the dot com bubble burst. The common cycle here is that tech workers get laid off because it's grown too fat because there's a race for talent. And then what happens is sales and marketing folks get hired because the companies start hunting hard for income. And as the income grows, then you see more of the tech workers come back on board. In this cycle, we've seen this before. I wonder, I would love to talk to someone about this, but I bet that other even material goods also go through this cycle around engineering versus sales and marketing.
sure. You think about the previous industry where everyone was making manufacturing.
Yeah.
I suspect initially, anyway, your frontline factory workers were making really good money,
Yeah.
and then people heard about that and got in there, and it just reduced the value.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
suddenly you're looking around and you have 5,000 employees, and you're like, oh, I need to get rid of it. I started this company when I had 100 people.
that's right. There, we know obviously the history of manufacturing labor is really messy, and I am not an expert, but we know
Yeah,
that
me neither.
Henry Ford, he paid salary that were like almost double his competitors, because he wanted the best of the best to come and work in. And I think that that similar model probably exists in the tech space as well, where there's just competitive salaries for
Sure.
these talented employees, and that trickles out to employees that probably don't do as much, but the salaries are high.
Well, and how sustainable is it? You have a Meta software dev making $500,000 a year.
Mhm.
Uh, Obviously, Meta's huge, but you have, in that same city, you have a medium to small size business who's paying 160K for that same role.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
do?
What do you
How
do?
is that sustainable? And maybe the answer is like Meta just continues to make money over fist, but um, you that only works if you forever have growth. I suspect anyway. That's
Yes,
my economics
yes.
101 hat anyway.
That's our yeah.
That's where it stops
For
working, but
any of the viewers,
right,
we both hold PhDs in tech
right.
economics, awarded by the MetaWorks Labs
Yes, of
company.
course.
So just saying, take us seriously. I think the thing that scares me is my clientele, kind of by the nature of what it is, are folks who have a little bit of extra money who are willing to invest in training and development, like personal development. And if folks are getting laid off, it's going to be harder for me to find clients. At the same time, this might be exactly the time that people decide to invest in themselves and say, "Hey, I need to take it to the next level, or I need to find a way out of the career I've been in, or I need to make a breakthrough because what I've been doing in my life is not going to work in the long term." So there's plenty of play there, but I worry how much it's going to affect my industry as well.
Hmm.
So we'll
Well,
see.
and we'll see because again, give it till March.
Yeah, give me till March.
you,
Yeah,
you might not care next year.
I'm just like, yeah, exactly. I'm just like wearing ratty clothing, and
Yeah.
just like I had to stop drinking coffee 2 weeks ago because I
Mm-mm.
can't afford it anymore. Not even the Folgers is affordable. Yeah, it could be bad, but it should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see a change? So you are self-employed as a remote worker now. What does that mean?
That is a great MetaWork Labs question.
Yeah.
Um, I think that it's awesome. So I moved from Seattle to Jackson, Mississippi in last year in the summer, and switched to a different company that was 100% remote right around that same time. And that was my kind of line in the sand commitment to remote work. And I think now doing coaching and consulting, um, almost all virtually, that commitment feels really good to me. Like I can kind of put my money where my mouth is. I was working for a corporation and they could have at any time decided, hey, we're going to send you back to the office. Now I'm my own boss. If I think I can operate the business this way, uh, then it doesn't matter. Like I'm allowed to be remote for as long as I want to. And that feels really, really good. It feels like, well, it feels congruent, which is the name of my company, Congruent Consulting. So it feels just right to do that. So um, I'm not worried about internet speed out here. Not worried
Sure.
about the technology supporting it. We talked, I think, on episode 1 around collaborative technology, and I use it day in day out, um, and we'll continue using it. But the stuff is good enough for the work that I'm doing. And in fact, it kind of is designed for the work that I do, which is one-on-one conversations or pre-recorded lessons.
Do you feel that, so as a remote consultant
Mhm.
or coach, do you feel that your client base is really large because of that?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be anybody, anywhere really in the world.
Sure.
Um, it's probably primarily going to be America, um, or English-speaking countries, obviously. But it's gigantic. So part of what makes it good for me is the potential clientele. I don't need thousands of clients. I
Right.
need ten good clients, which means I have a giant pool of potential clients that I can help and work with that would be well served by my business. And I don't need to find thousands of them. I don't even need a marketing machine that will find me thousands of them. I just need 10 good ones. And that's a lot easier to do. That's a lot easier business to operate than I think a product business, which may rely on hundreds of sales or something like
Sure.
that, or even need 100 sales a day or something like that to operate. For me, it's 10 good ones consistently. That's really what I need. And that feels awesome because there are people all over the US who can use what I do, and they can be remote too.
Sure.
Because I don't care if you live in North Dakota, I don't care if you live in Maine, I don't care if you live in Southern California. We can talk, and the tech is there, and the benefit that you'll receive from that conversation is there, regardless of where we are geographically. It's like perfectly designed for remote work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can meet them where they're at, whether
Yeah.
they're on the couch at 3 p.m. or,
Mhm.
their time,
Yes.
or whatever.
Yep. It's even cool. I have a potential client that I'm talking to next week who is in Europe and will
Mm,
be in Europe. And um, as long as our timing works out, and like there's enough overlap between Europe time and
sure.
US time, that daylight time, that we could meet at a very reasonable hour and still connect. And it's so cool that I'd be able to be on a call with someone who works and lives in Europe.
I'm trying to, this kind of goes into something we discussed last time, but
Mhm.
what would it take to pull you away from this now? Now that you're kind of in this,
Mm.
what's, so you are self-employed, you are remote,
Mhm.
and you are like, you're not hurting for money. There's this whole other issue here where most people become self-employed and they're broke, but you're actually
Yeah.
not.
Not right
Um,
now.
so
Yeah.
you're, yeah,
I need to keep these clients that I have.
right, right.
It all has to keep coming in.
So you are in a good
Yeah.
position. You are in a self-sustaining position, a powerful position.
Yeah.
But what would it take for, say, you to go back into an office? I guess there's two questions. What would it take? What would it take for you to go back in the office, and what would it take for you to accept another, traditional but remote corporate gig?
Those are both really good questions. The go back into an office question is not happening.
Great.
Um,
Great.
I just am not as productive in the office as I am here, in my office. And the flexibility that I have, if I want to go work at a coffee shop or a different location, or if I'm visiting family or friends elsewhere and I'm able to work still. I spent a month in Seattle earlier this year, and I'm going to spend 2 weeks at least in Seattle later this year, and I'll work those days. And I worked while I was there. Um, so my commitment there is pretty high. Like, I think I talked last time. I love hybrid work when it comes to workshops.
Mhm.
When it comes to getting a group of people in the room to make some decisions and put things up on a board and like physically manipulate them and have real discussions, hopefully very emotional discussions. That's more powerful in person.
Sure.
I would love to continue doing that. I love facilitating workshops like that. That isn't good to me. Doesn't feel like go back to the office. That feels have an event.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm happy to
I'd
do
agree. Yeah.
in-person events. So I am just not going to go. And fast forward 5 years, Christo
Of
may
course.
think
Yeah.
differently, but right now I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Right.
This is the life for me. The other part of your question is interesting. Of like, what would it have to be like to entice me? What would or to go back to a corporate style job?
Sure.
Um,
And this is, I'll just add, this is really relevant for me and my current company, but also the industry is that, um, and particularly the tech industry, is that a lot of big companies are trying to entice remote workers back into the office.
yeah.
So they are, they're refurnishing their campus. They're adding more, espresso machines or whatever. There's lots of these things that they're doing to introduce incentive. Um, e- Even I'm aware of one company that's paying their employees more if they return to the office.
Okay, so let's go. Let's okay. I think I would give you a really uncreative answer. So
Sure.
let me actually step back. And you're remote too, right?
Correct.
So let's step back and let's ask, like,
And this
what
applies
would
to
it?
me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What would it actually have to be like
Right.
to go into campus? Let's play with this a little bit. To me, what instantly came to mind was like if there was a jujitsu gym that had regular
Sure.
classes
Yeah.
in the morning
Sure.
before work, and there were showers, and I could get ready there. That's enticing to me. That would be awesome. If all of my meals were comped, that would be fantastic. And if they even like, let's add to this, they even gave you like leftover meals that you could cook on the weekends or something like
Sure.
that, or even like a sort of like catering, like take this home to your family. Okay, now we're starting to make this make sense.
Sure.
I want my own office. Um, I never want to work in a cube farm or, God
Right.
forbid, an open office
Right.
setting again.
Yeah.
Um, I'd work in a like a WeWork sort of environment where
Mhm.
there were public spaces and conference rooms and stuff like that because that's nice. Um, let's see. What are
Yeah.
some of
I
the
mean,
other bennies? Like,
I, yeah.
it's so tough.
It's tough because it's all dumb.
Yeah.
There's very little actual incentive to return to an office. Now, if what I'm not sure what my number is at this moment, but there's definitely a salary range that's like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
definitely go to the,
Yeah.
if someone offered you $1 million a year,
I'd
yeah,
do
you'd
it.
probably go
Yeah.
back, right?
Okay.
So,
Cool.
um, mine's not that high, nearly that high, but um,
I don't think mine's that high either, but
yeah, not remotely, but um, at the end of the day, like it just comes down to if it's a good role or not. Um, I am entertaining the idea of going back to the office for one role that I'm interviewing at currently.
Mm,
And it's interesting because I'm realizing that a lot of my complaints about remote work or I'm sorry, a lot of my complaints about going to the office previously was that the office that you and I both were located at wasn't like a central hub of civilization, if you will. There just wasn't a lot around. It
that's
was a
right.
kind of a pain to get to. While it was okay once you got inside, the area wasn't beautiful and definitely not beautiful once you were outside the campus. Um, Whereas the role, if I was to accept it, that I'd be going to some swanky business building with coffee shops all around, 15-minute bus ride there kind of
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
that is way more appealing retrospectively. That is way more appealing than what I had before.
Yeah.
Um, Now, am I going to try to still do hybrid work? Yes. I
Of
don't want to
course.
completely give up remote work.
Of course.
I want the flexibility of coming in at 11 a.m. in the morning and doing my thing and then bouncing out. Like, I think
Yeah.
flexibility is very crucial. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying too about you're just not productive if you're sitting in an office all day.
You made me think. So my first job after grad school that was like a corporate job was working for a law firm, and it was all remote. The law firm was in Florida. I was living in Seattle. There was a Seattle team of kind of project managers,
Mm,
and we would once a week meet on Fridays at this place. There's a co-working space called Office Nomads, and I love co-working spaces. It was cool because you could meet other people who were also working. I didn't like Office Nomads because it was mostly open seating. So we didn't have like an office that we would go rent and do that. It was just like all of us sitting at a table. And it's like, this sucks. I don't have two monitors.
right.
Which that work particularly for that job needed like multiple monitors. Um, so it was kind of bad. But the business model of co-working spaces made perfect sense. So like things like WeWork make perfect sense to me. And in fact, if I had a team, or if my business grows enough that I need a team and they were local, let's say I hire only local employees, I'd absolutely say like once a week for on Fridays or Wednesdays or something like that, let's go into the office for the morning, then let's get lunch and then do what you need to do for the rest of the afternoon. Let's
Right.
connect as a team. We'll do team stuff in the morning, and then like have a like not work engagement, and then we'll do whatever we want the rest of the day. Like if you don't work Wednesday afternoons, you don't work Wednesday afternoons. As long as the work's getting done, we're good.
Right.
Um,
That's what
that's the other
salary's supposed to be
that's
anyway,
the
right?
other thing is I hate about the office, and we talked about this I think last episode is, or maybe it was episode, yeah, one of the episodes. My thing that I hate is that corporate feeling of like I need my butt in the chair in order to feel like I'm being productive and
Agreed.
working.
Yes.
I don't want to make anybody work that way.
Yeah.
I know I have portions of my day where I am very productive, and I have portions of my day where I am not productive. And that is okay. And I don't, as long as the work is getting done, work's getting done.
Yep.
So inflicting that on someone else is just kind of, to me, counter to the remote work space, like where you get a chance to work at your own pace, or you have deadlines out in front of you and you get to decide how you're going to interact with them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm remote right now and I work 9 to 5 supposedly, but in reality, it's way more liquid than that. I work
Yes.
8 to 11 p.m. technically.
Yeah.
But between that, I'm not working the entire time.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'll send an email at 10 p.m. or whatever just to get the
Yes.
situation done.
Yeah.
And I think that's big. And I think where people get messed up is they get pulled into an office and they still do that. They s-
Yes.
they go home or they stay in the office anyway and still work till 11 p.m. sending emails, and
No.
it's just wrong.
Right. The flexibility of waking up in the morning, having coffee, answer some email, have a conversation, do some reading,
Yep.
then sit down, crush out a PowerPoint, or for me, it's like do some coaching calls, and then go do a workout and like have lunch, and the flexibility of like decide. And there are some days I have clients that I see until like 7 or 8 p.m. I have a call tonight that starts at 7. Uh, Great.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to do that. I can do that if I want to.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what, I'm not working from 9 to 8 today. Like that's not happening. Because why would it? I would never do that. I would never do that in a corporate setting. So I'm not going to do that for my job. And I don't want to inflict that on other people if I don't want to. The
Mm,
other cool thing is like if I want to work weekends, you work weekends. That's that's the remote culture. That's the good culture. Some of that's entrepreneurship, but remote is get the job done. What's the deadline? What's the thing that needs to get done? You do it however you need to do it. If you want to go fast, go fast. If you need to go slow, go slow.
yeah. So again, so you're remote right now.
Hmm.
You are self-employed.
Hmm.
Let's assume it works out,
Yep.
and it will. It's fine.
It totally will.
Um, but so what would it take for you to still work remote, but go back to a traditional,
To have a boss.
to have a boss, to be in a company of 200 people or 3,000, who knows? Um, and just be back in that. And let's assume you have a reasonable workload. Um, but I mean, what do you think? Is it just a
And
money
it's
thing,
not,
or
yeah. And we kind of took money earlier off the table and said that that was not, like, obviously there are numbers that would entice me back.
yeah? But
Um,
but if that's the answer, that's if it's only a money thing, then you don't have to give a number. But if
I
that's the
can
answer,
imagine there being someone that I am excited to work for.
I see.
I could see that I feel like I would work for them and I would feel really, really excited to work for them. Um, and you know what? You're making me think, actually. So one of my clients is this company called Inclu that does DEI consulting, and they also have an inclusion dashboard.
Mm,
And I'm working for that company, and um, the CEO is someone that I report to, and I have work that I have to deliver for her, but really for the company in order for the company to be successful. I'm perfectly comfortable with that situation because we have a contract, we have regular reviews of the work that I'm doing, but there's no oversight on how I'm getting it done.
mm,
Like, did the prospecting email go out? Yes. Did someone
sure.
stand over my shoulder to say it needs to be formatted this way or done this way, or this is how you collect your prospects and this is how you? No. If that happened, I would probably turn around and say, unless, like, I really feel like I'm learning something new here, not just being micromanaged, I'm out. I don't need that. So the boss problem is really the problem here.
Mm,
Is I have never liked having to report out on my work that way.
sure.
Um, that it just feels like it totally crushes my creativity, and um, it doesn't give me the leeway to do the work the way I want to do the work. So I'd have to be a really good boss, or
What
a
is
flexible boss, like the boss I have for Include.
sure?
Yeah, that where I have basically all the autonomy that I could need for that. Um, if I had less autonomy, I actually wouldn't get the work done.
Um, let's say someone offered you a reasonable salary for a remote gig for what you do,
Okay.
but it was in a really cool industry, whatever industry that is. Would that be enough to pull you over?
No.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, the industry thing's not going to be. It's the people. I like people. It's
Sure.
not the industry's cool. I got enticed by healthcare
Mm,
because I thought I was going to make a difference, and
yeah.
a little cynical now. Working in healthcare kind of grinds your hopes down that you're going to
Mhm,
actually make a difference. But I don't know what industry it would have to be that would entice me. If the people are good, that's easier. But it's
sure.
got to be. I think the other thing maybe is if I felt like I was going to learn a ton,
Mm,
but I don't. There's some point where that learning stops being just like it stops being sufficient. I want to learn and then go apply it and see what I can do with it.
right.
But I
Yeah.
also am sort of thinking, I'm like, I think someone would give me a job and I would still keep coaching on the side.
Sure.
I just wouldn't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that was part of the hypothetical
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like you have. You mentioned you got enticed by healthcare. And I similarly feel the pressure to change the world,
Hmm.
and then that failing in healthcare. Um, but maybe there's a 100-person company out there, a startup that's going to change the world, and I'm
I
curious if that would entice you.
yeah, I think a startup could do it, but
Yeah,
gosh, I'm just so excited to try and grow this business
yeah,
that I think my primary answer almost always is going to deflect to there
sure,
to say, like, look, I want to see if I can do it.
yeah,
And if I can do it, then no need to go back.
yeah, and
But or at least for the time being until, like, the water runs out, right? There's not enough clients, or like I drain the well. I don't know. But right
hopefully this
now,
is no surprise. I think
yeah,
that's the right answer.
yeah,
I definitely am not trying to entice you away from that. But it's
yeah. You have a job for me.
yeah, no, I do not. I
What
barely have
ab-
a job for myself, but
What about you? Like, what's enticing about this new company that you're considering moving into a hybrid role? Like,
sure.
why is that worth it to you?
It's for me it would be a promotion. First of all, that's a clear win. Um within a corporate ladder way, I guess, right?
Hmm.
If you don't care about that, then that is I something not you specifically, but anyone listening, it's like it's always hard to weigh the pros and cons of the corporate ladder game. But
Yeah,
it would be a title promotion, and it would be more in general. I'm interested in kind of leaving the hard engineering space, the hard technical space, and getting into more um, kind of leadership, but more project oriented,
yeah,
more organizational, operational, and just in general, implementing a vision versus you know typing out some command to trigger some event in a technical space. Um,
so it's a
I
role,
also
it's a job role change that's kind of enticing.
the
Like, you can
job
learn a
role,
lot, you can do different
it's
work. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
and the variety,
Yeah.
I think is a high in a project management role.
Hmm.
You do a project for 3 months, 4 months, especially with the company I'm considering. It's a consulting company, so it would be, one you'd move on from client to client as the projects close out,
Yeah.
and I think that's overall interesting to me. Um, and and obviously the pay is good in this situation too,
Yeah.
which is a big
Then,
consideration.
yeah, for sure.
Um, the thing that I enjoy about my remote job is that I do have significant life balance, work life balance, and that is something I would have to weigh against this new role
Yeah.
or any new role.
Yeah.
Eventually there will come a time where I will have to let go of this current role that I have. Um, and I think the success, the factors for success there are pretty high. I'm not getting paid crazy well. I'm not getting a whole lot of benefit aside from that work life balance that I currently have.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
And it's just time for a change too. In general, I've been at that company for 5, 6 years, longer, I think, and
I think
it's just
longer.
time. Yeah, I think longer. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
Yeah, you need some variety and you need opportunity to grow. I also think something that you are very good at and kind of underestimate about yourself is you're very good
mm,
with people. And I
sure,
think that putting you in a role where you're encountering clients more regularly, your network's gonna grow dramatically, and it's gonna be really beneficial to you. I think that you're gonna find some of the new friends that you want to make, some of the new colleagues that you're hoping to make. You're going to have future work opportunities that come from these types of roles. And
absolutely.
I think a consulting gig is a perfect next step for you.
And that's something to be said from everyone wants to be respected, and something these people interviewing me have done, and including the owner of the company, they've said. Um, They've just shown that level of respect. They've shown that desire to
Yeah.
have me. I'm not like a number on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's a smaller company,
Yeah.
and they consistently have complimented how you know how I can handle a conversation, how I
Yeah.
am well spoken, and so much so that they just are putting in extra effort to effectively build me a role. I originally got denied for the role I applied for, but they just liked me, and that's really cool. And I don't want to, I don't want to be smitten by that, right? I want to
Yeah.
keep a good balance there, but
Yeah.
it is nice to be considered so strongly.
Yeah. And they're treating you well already.
Yeah,
And I think that um,
that goes a long way.
it goes a long way. And I think to kind of draw us back to our conversation topic, I think the problem with most tech workers is that they are cogs in the machine,
Right,
that they're well kept pets, but they are not respected like people. They're
right,
there to make code. And it's really obvious when these layoffs happen that actually how they're being treated. They're like animals in a menagerie.
hmm
Um, not respected as individuals, and that's pretty obvious. I I even feel a little burnt by my previous company because I worked hard for them. I like
Sure.
gave them a little bit of my heart, and feel like I shouldn't have done that because the way I was put out the door was very corporate. There's which they have to do. I get that, but
But
yeah,
it's
man,
hard. I
so
mean,
yep,
you meet all these people, you spend a lot of time with them, you
yeah,
and sometimes you might even call them a friend,
yeah,
and then that same person is the one that's forced to
that's
let you
correct.
go, and
That's correct.
that's insane.
Well,
It's such a delicate balance, and I think it does make it easier when you are remote to handle
hmm
that,
hmm
which is another pro in the remote column.
yeah. Um,
But I do think tech workers are considered dime a dozen now, and I think there's this kind of mindset, especially at a leadership uh, level, that tech workers are a dime a dozen, but also that they're just like these dorks that sit in a basement, um, and that's what leads a lot to these kind of decisions to make great mass layoffs,
yeah,
especially
yeah.
in a competitive space. And I fear a lot for those people because I think they've just had it really good, and
I think that's
I
true.
I don't know that that's the situation.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't know if it's gonna last.
I
Exactly.
don't I don't think it's gonna last at all.
Yeah,
And that could be, a current thing or that could be a 10-year thing. Who
yeah,
knows? But
yeah,
recession or not, I just am concerned for them
yeah.
on a
Uh,
human
s-
level.
so do we want to talk about Elon?
Sure.
And specifically Twitter, uh, and the kind of craziness going on Twitter. So, the connection here is that Twitter laid off just a giant chunk of their employees,
Sure.
their technical employees,
And
and
and it's just fun to shit on Elon. So
it's fun to shit on Elon. It is fun to shit on Elon. Elon, if you're listening and you'd like to be on our podcast, it's going to cost you
I'm sorry.
$8. Yeah,
I apologize ahead of time.
yeah,
Please hire me.
yeah. Please, please hire us. um, Yeah, but it is going to cost you $8 to be on the cast.
At least.
So yeah, you gotta.
We only accept blue check marks here.
That's blue check requirement. And honestly, you need to have been given a PhD by the MetaWorks Lab University. That's on just
True.
how it's got to be. Yeah,
That will cost you
um,
$1 billion.
yeah. Dr. Lute and Dr. Alexander. They just we gotta be careful who we associate with.
The elite squad.
Yeah. Um. So I think what's crazy about Elon is he's like playing weird politics that feel very conservative in some spaces and very like liberal in other spaces. And it just makes people just go "Wee!" on the internet. It
Mm,
just makes them angry. And that is funny to me. But we actually saw this with Trump as well. That
sure.
like the person who can make the people angriest gets attention and gets what they want. And I wonder if that's just kind of like Elon talked to a publicist and said, "Hey, I need to make sure Twitter doesn't die." Um, and they're like, "Well, you here's what you do: you just make everybody angry, and then they'll get on your platform and they'll fight with you." I'm like, oh, okay. So, I mean, it seems to be working. Do you know if Twitter's had any drops in like membership or anything like that or usage?
Yeah, I think I read that it's around 1 million people.
How much was it before? How much?
Oh, I
Like,
don't know
what
the answer to
percentage
that.
is that?
Yeah.
Are there like 2 million people on
Right.
Twitter? Because that's a problem. Um,
Okay, so approximately 450 million active monthly users.
okay, so just as a million people who
1 million
drop
people. So yeah, in perspective, that's actually
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nothing. It's less than a percent.
Um, yeah, that's not surprising. I think there's a lot of people who get up in arms about Elon, but the quantity of people that actually care, yeah, is minimal.
Mhm.
It doesn't actually change much for the average person or Twitter user. Oops. And sorry, adjusting windows. And they'll be just fine. I don't know when Elon's going to get his money back, but Twitter as a company will be just fine. Their monthly base will keep on chugging along,
You got to pay
especially
your
when
$8?
no, I don't, yeah, I'm not a Twitter user, so
Okay.
maybe my entire opinion's null and void. But uh, I will say it has been interesting, especially within a MetaWorks kind of perspective. I don't know how familiar you are with Mastodon, but Mastodon is an open source federated version of Twitter, effectively.
Okay.
It's
So is it like Web3 sort of like distributed
it's
sort of thing,
it's
or
it's
kind of
a kind of aligned with
pre-Web3?
that.
Okay.
The entire idea, to make it really simple because it gets confusing fast, is that so from a UI perspective and a usability perspective, it is Twitter for sure. But imagine Twitter if people hosted their own servers and your account could travel between those servers.
Okay.
That way, it's kind of future proof and
Yeah. It's
should something bad
distributed.
happen, yeah, it's
Yep.
distributed. Yep.
Yep. They can't just
But
shut it down.
it's been interesting because everyone was like, "Oh, just jump from to Mastodon," but it is with a lot of open source stuff. There are some usability problems.
Yeah.
Mastodon doesn't have the benefit of billions of dollars of UI investments and
hmm
what have you over the past 10 years it's existed.
Yeah. This is the network problem. Like at its root is these platforms become useful because they have users.
Yep,
And the more users you have, the more likely that new users or future users are going to join your platform.
totally.
And so it's going to be hard to like create a Twitter killer, even if the benefits, the ideological benefits, are better.
And it's just, I think everyone wants to create the killer. They want to create the Twitter killer, the Facebook killer, but especially in the case of Facebook, it's like I think people have moved on from that conceptually,
Mhm.
and there's just no need. If you want Facebook, you go to Facebook. If you want
Right.
Twitter, you go to Twitter. You're not going to go to an alternative.
That's right. How do you feel about this problem of like a billionaire owning a journal, like essentially like a
Yeah,
whole journalism outlet?
I will say. So before I say that, it is interesting because it's becoming more common. Bezos owns
Yeah,
Washington Post or something,
yeah,
or New York Times, one of
that's
those.
right. Yep,
And we've seen I think it's the Washington Post,
it
that
is.
Washington Post does write favorably about Amazon.
Of course they do.
Surprise, surprise, but you would expect some neutrality.
But like, why? Why would you
It's
expect neutrality?
right. I mean, yeah, it's hard.
I'm gonna
It's
shit on journalists right now.
yeah, go for it.
they, all these journalists, they're like, oh, there's like, we only write the truth, we only tell the stories, we only do this thing, and it's like, no, you write the stories that you think are going to sell. You write the stories that are going to be
Right.
enticing and spicing.
Clickbaity.
If it bleeds, it leads, like
Right.
stuff. And that's how it's been. They're like, oh, the internet destroyed that. Like it's just all about clickbait. And it's like, go look at some newspapers from the 1950s or the 1930s. Like you're kidding yourself. Like I get that there's this idealized form of journalism, but like these yuppies, these journalism yuppies who want to make journalism out to be this like perfectly idealized like golden age that we formerly had, nonsense. It's never been that way. And the fact that we have like public opinion that now can be posted on a platform, like that's awesome. And it's not shocking that the people who own your company you don't talk bad about because you lose your job.
Sure.
Like, oh, you think you're gonna write a Vice article and then you're gonna shit all over Vice? Like, nice try. That's not
Yep.
gonna happen. You're gonna do the same thing with the New York Times. Like, come on. Like, you're not writing the insider scoop gossip rag story about the company you're working for. So, where's your idealism, journalists? Why aren't you telling us about the drama and about how hard it is these decisions get made? Like, where's that? It's because it doesn't exist. Because you don't
And
do that. That's not what people do. They don't shoot themselves in the foot.
that's
Anyway.
one of my fundamental problems with a billionaire owning anything in this realm.
Mhm.
Washington Post, Twitter, what have you. Is that you're influenced and you are compromised and you can't tell the truth. journalist or just casual Twitter user, where it made big news that Elon Musk changed the policy around, um, accounts basically making fun of him.
Yeah.
So unless they're clearly marked as parody, was the word I was looking for. Unless they're clearly marked as parody accounts, you will get banned for impersonating Elon Musk.
I don't know if this
So,
technicality thing matters to you at all. I kind of like feel bad even bringing it up. So Twitter's had a policy about parody accounts for
sure,
forever. What happened is that it got enforced.
right,
Um,
that's fair.
that's the difference, and fair enough. Like I would be kind of pissed about that. It's clearly a power move,
I
but
I think my problem with it ultimately is Elon Musk conceptually bought Twitter to save Twitter from itself, to make it the public square, to make freedom of speech a core tenet of Twitter. And so for Elon Musk to then immediately turn around and ban people very publicly for making fun of him and impersonating him is just wild to me.
well,
Uh,
hey, okay, I'm gonna push back a little bit.
yeah,
Number one, obviously, the man's last name is Musk. Like easy to parody,
yeah,
easy to parody. Um, I I don't think it's that you can't be critical of the emperor. You're allowed to be critical of Elon. You're allowed to do
you
that.
just can't impersonate him
You cannot
unless you know
trick people into thinking
sure,
you are the emperor.
sure.
That's the difference. That's a pretty benevolent dictator who says, "My job here is to protect your ability to have conversations."
Mm,
And one type of conversation that gets in the way is you tricking people into making them believe you're someone else. And by the way, I'm going to charge you at the door so that you can't do that. You
mm,
have to be verified. You have to be uh, we have to know who you are in order for you to participate in this public discourse. You can't get this is not for free. In order for it to be for free, we have to include all the spam bots, all the impersonators,
sure.
and it destroys the possibility of having this discourse. I know I'm standing for Elon right now, but or simping, I think is the right word
Something,
here.
yeah.
I'm simping for Elon, but I look. I'll take that benevolent dictator. I'd much rather that dictator than the person who says, "Yeah, impersonations, go for it. We don't care who you are."
Yeah.
Because now you can't trust anything. I don't want
I
that.
I think either way, the value of Twitter can't go understated. It You don't wanna lose that. You don't wanna, wake up tomorrow and then find out that the town square, if you will, costs $10 a month.
Yeah,
That's cost prohibitive for a lot of people, and that just might exceed the value of Twitter itself to a lot of people.
yeah, fair
So
enough.
I totally see what you're saying. It is it is a problem when the emperor that moves in, kind of shows himself off as the cool guy and is spouting about freedom, and then meanwhile he gets upset when the jesters in the courthouse poke fun of him. I
Totally.
think that's the problem.
That it's a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's bad. Is
yeah,
it less bad
sure,
than not knowing what's trustworthy? I don't
right,
know.
yeah, and is it
I
less
guess I'm
bad than not allowing jesters at all?
right.
It's
Right.
exiling
I
the
don't know.
jesters.
I don't know. I would say it's less bad.
Yeah. I would say though, in general, back to your original question, just that I'm kind of indifferent to Elon Musk owning
Yeah.
Twitter, partially
Yeah.
because I'm not a Twitter user, but obviously, but in general, I think I don't think Twitter is going to be really harmed by Elon Musk. I don't think any of it matters, as long as he doesn't do anything like a crazy UI rebuild or a crazy fundamental change. People are still going to keep on tweeting and using
Mhm.
Twitter how they were before. Um, I think it is back in the day we had a discussion about this. I think it was I'm not pro Trump, but I think it is a kind of crazy ability to effectively mute the president of the United States. And regardless of what he was saying, I have extreme mixed feelings about that power by a tech company.
Yeah.
Especially not that I'm right leaning, but it is a challenge when you are a extremely left company and you are muting right speakers. Um, it's just while it may have been right in the moment to do that to Trump, it is a kind of a crazy power transition, and that's where my concern comes from is what those billionaires do with that power. Um, for the average person, it's not going to matter at all,
Yeah.
but for our political landscape, our cultural landscape, there's definitely a culture war there,
I
and a
think it's
political war.
unquestionably powerful.
Yeah.
If let's imagine scale back the clock, it's pre-Twitter, pre-internet sort of thing, but we've got TV, and
Mm,
let's say the president was getting on TV every day,
sure.
and one of the networks is like, we're not showing that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, we would step back and say, oh, that's quite a thing that you
Right.
just did. Like you just turned off the president.
Yeah.
Um, we would ask about what powers those television networks have and whether it's good or bad that they have that power. I think the same question should apply in the case of tech companies. Um, let's start wrapping up. So first of all, where can people find you on the internet if they want to reach out and talk to you?
I probably easiest thing at this moment is LinkedIn. Ray
LinkedIn.
Alexander. I'm one of 3. You'll be able to find me.
Oh, three. Okay, there are three. Great. Awesome. Awesome. You can find me on LinkedIn as well at Christo Lute. I don't know if there's 3 of me or not. I haven't looked. You also can reach out at Congruent Consulting, or yeah, I think it's congruent.consulting, or at chronicpain.coach. This has been an awesome episode. Thank you, Gray. And
Yeah. Thank you.
for all our viewers, we'll see you next time.
See you.
All right.